Well, thank you very much for that amazing introduction, by the way, Caleb. Welcome, guys, to a new episode of the EuroShow, your source for gaming industry news and how it relates to Eve. I'm here with the usual panel, Caleb Ariana. Hey, welcome to you.
Hey, Petey.
And we also have Dr. Spiderman as well.
Hello. What did you just call Cloud?
I'm not. I wasn't even registering what he said to me there for a minute there.
I didn't quite catch it either.
Yeah, me neither. I will find out on the VOD. Let's put it this way.
I think I tried to say "Hey people," but it's fine.
Okay. And my name's McLeod, by the way. I am the Chief of Programming here at Talking Stations, and we're going to basically talk about some interesting stuff that's been going on in the gaming news over the past week, maybe a little bit more. Some things that we didn't catch sort of in the past 2-3 weeks. But basically things that kind of are interesting, might relate a little bit to Eve, might not, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Inspirational topics that we usually then rant about on this show.
Exactly. So let's kick off with the first. And it's relating to something that we talked about on one of our previous episodes. In actual fact, before we do that, let's quickly do a very quick rundown on the previous episode that we did, right? So the previous episode, we talked about the Columbia Police using the Eve character created to make mugshots of criminals. Great find, by the way, Spot.
That was awesome.
That was an amazing find. I have no idea how you found that. We had a sort of a story about the PUBG maker Crafton is gearing up to potentially make a sci-fi shooter that may potentially rival CCP London's new shooter that they're developing, and how that might be, how that could potentially be quite some serious competitor.
Genre defining, right?
They labeled it as genre defining. We'll see when we'll see, right? But with Crafton making their thing. Different. Yeah, with Crafton making their thing, like, competition is always good for the consumer, right? So, fingers crossed on that one. But Crafton kind of has a large amount of financial capital to kind of leverage to it.
I just thought that genre defining was more like the basic of something. Otherwise, you should say genre innovating, right?
Yeah, or just not genre innovate, just innovative, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
Just say it's going to be good. That'll do.
Yeah. And the other thing that we got onto was that Facebook let hackers leak 500 million users' private data, which is, just that little, like, when it jumps to the billion kind of mark, like, it's like, you have issues, like, you need to solve them. But basically, we went on from there to sort of talk about how to minimize your personal data breaches and how to secure your online presence, that kind of thing.
Can I just say a short thing about that? Because in the recent years, everyone is going to things like two-factor authentication and all that stuff, right? And recently, a horrible thing happened to me because I bought my PlayStation 4 and I've been buying games left, right, and center when I just got it. But recently, they just put in a limit thing where you have to resupply some sort of either password or 2FA thing to actually do purchases on the PlayStation Store. And this is really bad for me because that means I can't one-click buy anymore. So I have to actually either go online and buy it through the online store, or I have to put in a stupid password every single time that I buy stuff on the PlayStation Store. And I'm just thinking, this will stop my casual and ad hoc overbuying.
Just whimsical purchases, like, completely. I fancy that. Like, oh no, I have to do a bunch of steps.
You can blame little Timmy buying 1,000 FIFA cards on his daddy's credit card for that one, I'm afraid.
Well,
they need to put some kind of secondary authorization because it's particularly kids getting on their parents' PlayStation and pushing the buttons.
Or why did they not just add a parental lock thing then instead? Because
but now you're putting the responsibility on the parents, and that's stupid.
Oh yeah, that's bad, because the bank should have the responsibility. I want to be able to one-click buy stuff.
Just passing the buck down, as you go, kind of thing. But if you want to know more about that, we actually did an entire episode about how about the things that are now affecting Caleb's online purchasing via the PlayStation Store.
Little Timmy,
in an episode where we basically went over gambling and loot boxes and stuff like that. But let's move on.
No naughty words, Caleb.
Let's move on. Let's start with our first topic, right? Well, I say our first topic. Our first topic is basically a myriad of topics, because there's a bunch of small stuff that we'd like to sort of, just mention, that kind of thing. There was something in a previous episode that we talked about, and this is kind of a bit of a update to that. Essentially, Discord was potentially going to be purchased by Microsoft. Apparently Discord has ended those talks and said, that they are more interested potentially about going to an IPO, which is an initial public offering, which is basically you potentially be able to buy shares as a member of the public.
Much better solution. That means that they can retain control and just not have to bend to stupid buyers' stupid rules.
Yeah.
Didn't we allude to that being a potentiality? And it's oh look, Microsoft wants to give us $90 gazillion, so when we go to an IPO, everyone's already interested. Because if Microsoft wanted to give them $1 bazillion, then maybe we should.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting a quote on a car, right? You now know how much it's worth.
Well, I think my point of view on that would be that, well, yes, we may have hinted at it, but mostly from the perspective that when I mentioned that you usually buy out your competition, I think Discord has actually realized that they have the balls and the vision to actually compete with Microsoft. So why would they sell themselves, right, to them, right? Why not just go IPO and then outcompete and steal those market shares, which is going to be a lot more profitable for them. So I think that's the right choice, really.
Yeah. There is another issue with potentially Discord going the IPO route. And that's potentially Microsoft actually buying a whole bunch of shares in Discord.
They'll do it anyway,
They'll do it anyway, yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing is that when you're doing an IPO round, it's a little bit different than when you just aggressively try to buy a company. So they can't really do that in an easy way. Of course, they can put in massive high bids and just push the price up, but that's basically just going to give money to Discord, right? So I'd say normally you can't really gain a massively demanding share in an IPO, because usually not enough of the shares is offered to give you majority. So it's not really an issue.
I mean, I don't know if you guys know Linus Tech Tips or the sort of Linus Media Group kind of thing, but there was one of their shows, Riley, a presenter on there, summed it up quite perfectly in my mind. I'll play the little excerpt from that, which is just fantastic, to be completely honest.
Please don't. Just you're gonna ruin it.
Let our buttholes alone.
Yeah, you're just Discord is cool, okay? And you're Xbox. It's just keep making Game Pass. All right. Yesterday we.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. Basically, Discord's cool. You're not. Just keep making Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that in because that was kind of funny. Yeah. So, we can all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief at the fact that, the company that has destroyed a few ventures into, social media isn't buying our most favored social media platform.
Well, I will say that if I was still doing real life market stuff, I would actually want to buy in on something like this. Because I think Discord does have the vision and the capabilities to actually not just stay a player, but actually become a massive player in this scene. So I think they have huge potential, especially if they get the money to actually throw at even more cool development. Because what they've already done in the garage, in my opinion, is mind-blowingly impressive.
So normally I wouldn't I wouldn't consider buying shares on certain things, especially companies who have been quoted to say they haven't actually made a profit yet, right? But for all of the advantages and all of the features that Discord offers, everybody, gamers, that kind of thing, and especially for talking stations, because like what you see here presented is the majority of it, audio and video, is very heavily dependent on Discord. So in that kind of sense, I would be very much inclined to purchase shares in Discord just on the fact that like I support what they are and what they do.
Yeah, and not just because of us being consumers and actually users of this, but also stuff like, if you followed the growth of Discord just in the period that we've been using it on TIS, the amount of response to the actual user base and introducing features that the users ask for and suggest, it's just been impressive. It's like really everything that we want and dream of and ask for. Of course, they need to prioritize their dev time, but we pretty much seem to get all of it. It's like they have been so good at this. I am very, very impressed.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. A little kind of thing. It's sort of like a CCP what not to do, but sort of CCP what to do and what not to do. It's kind of like it's sort of both sort of examples in one. So Valve apparently finally fixed an exploit in CSGO that could give basically hackers control of your PC. This has been something that Valve has known for 2 years now, and they've only finally fixed it.
Yeah. And we've talked about CSGO before.
But that's a big vulnerability.
But what you'll find is when vulnerabilities like this turn up, unless they're being or have been openly exploited, and this is obviously not the right thing to do, but it's just what happens is they get put to the back of the queue. The things that actually are actively a problem is what gets fixed. Though 2 years, come on, guys.
I know
critical exploit like that, you should fix that within a week or two of it being reported. Give the person that it reported it $1,000 and then push it out.
Exactly.
That's the responsible way.
Yeah, this is where you need the Imperium method of getting developers to fix problems, right? You basically warn your developer that there's a problem privately, and if they decide not to do anything about it, you just plaster it on your website and say, "Here, everybody, this is how you exploit this thing," and they will have to plug the hole.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like, it's not the fact that they fixed it. That's a good thing. The good thing is that they fixed it. The issue really is that it took them 2 years after it was reported for it to happen. Like, especially vulnerability of this kind of nature, this kind of size and severity. Like, yeah, maybe it hadn't been exploited too much by people, but like, the people who had been exploited by this, like, it's pretty holistic and it's pretty significant.
It's scary, really.
It is pretty scary,
especially for someone that of the size of CSGO, that they leave this for this long. And we've already covered some of the other topics on CSGO. So in situations like this, I think this is a massive, massive mistake that they didn't fix it earlier.
Now on to the next, because this is kind of a bit quick fire. On to the next thing. Ubisoft is joining Tesos blockchain ecosystem as a corporate baker.
Baker.
Now, I'm just going to assume that they meant backer.
I hope so.
Because I don't think Ubisoft, like, you know, in sort of like the COVID kind of year that we've had, has kind of like, you know, found newfound fondness for baking, you know, various different types of artisan breads and stuff like that. You know, I think very much this is a typo, and they're joining the Tezos blockchain ecosystem as a financial backer.
Yeah, I think Woottrans just nailed it. Someone was baked when they actually wrote it.
That's good. Yeah, that works.
Well, what they're on about is basically this is a good thing. The shift of all of this crypto blockchain blah da da into a more ecologically friendly format.
Yeah, because the variant that it uses doesn't use as much power and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it uses near enough nothing. Your traditional Bitcoin and most of the derivatives and like, you know, even Dogecoin work on. Basically, you have to pump in just a crap ton of computational power to process them, and I think it's got to the point where it's like something. This is pulling out my backside, but I know it's something ridiculous like this. Of like the 50th, if it were a country, cryptocurrency is like in the top 50 in terms of power consumption or something ridiculous.
Jesus.
Yeah, and you're just burning that to make magical internet coins is kind of a fair point to make. So to make it into a new format where it doesn't really need all of this computational power and therefore electrical power wasted.
It's kind of like you know,
welcome thing.
It's almost sort of like you know, a fight against the sort of people who are like, you know, fuck the trees. I want to have more of those coins with the funny internet dog on, right? You know.
Exactly. This is one of my pet reasons for hating crypto. It's the fact that it's even worse than AC systems in America. This is like a complete waste of energy and things that could actually benefit the planet. And I've hated it since it came out. But this thing just kept ramping up, and the stats now are in a range where it's like, if you're just a little bit of I care about the planet, you should basically boycott any of these cryptos, right? Because it's just not sustainable at all, and you shouldn't participate in it.
Well, it's questionable about that. Like, I mean, maybe sort of from a sort of ecological or sort of you know, that sort of level, that from an ecological moral standpoint, right? Yeah, probably that might be probably a good way to go. But I think with the fact that both CCP and now, you know, and obviously a whole bunch of like private citizens and stuff like that, and, you know, people kind of you know, contributing and basically backing blockchain stuff, you know, like cryptocurrency stuff, is kind of showing that, like, actually you probably should in some way get into this in some way, shape or form. Like, you know, with Ubisoft actually going in and you know, financially backing this is also a big step as well.
Well, and we can expect CCP to start sneaking in there as well, because we do know that at least the CEO is very, very interested in blockchain technology, right? So let's just see if the next piece of news is not going to be CCP gets baked on crypto.
I could just see Spod just like shaking his head, and this is so funny. Like, he hates the you know, the aspect of blockchaining and stuff like that CCP is getting into.
Well, the blockchain has its place, and a video game is not the place for blockchain.
all right. Anyway, yeah, like, so if you want to read up about what CCP or Hilmar kind of thinks about blockchain, there's an article there as well that talks about you know, CCP and how they and you know, Hilmar's kind of view on blockchain. I'll quickly post that up in chat anyway. but we should probably take a quick break before we go on to the next part of the show. I think, anyway. Yes. So we'll be back after this. Don't go away.
When there's a big war going on somewhere in the universe, that always reflects on the markets. Which makes people like me happy because we're the one making money off it. I'm the CEO of a industrial corporation in EVE Online. We're a 5-man operation and we specialize in manufacturing and delivering fully fitted chips in bulk. After huge battles where people lose, thousands of ships, then the next day what they're doing is they're reshipping, right? This is where my corporation comes in. When we receive an order from a client, the first thing we do is separate everything, we analyze it, we look at all of the ship hulls, all of the rigs, the ammo, the modules, and then everybody just gets to work. Some of us are going to be specialized in mining or keeping an eye on the stockpiles, and these primary resources, they will be picked up by someone else to refine into components that you can start using for manufacturing. Then in order to do this, they're also going to need a blueprint that is researched and ready to be used for production. It's a special kind of fun setting up the entire process from the raw minerals to the finished product. So imagine an alliance of thousands of people that needs to refit in the entire fleet. They just have to say, I want this, and it just gets delivered to their doorstep. One of the most magical things in EVE is there's so many different ways to play and different things to do that it can appeal to completely different people. I think what makes industrialists different is they're not driven by conflicts. They're the other side of the coin where they find their enjoyment in providing something for other people. What they do is absolutely key for everything else that happens in the universe. Like there would be no combat if there was no ships being built. Yeah.
Welcome back, guys. You just obviously saw a something that was not just the regular adverts, but it was actually the thing that we were going to discuss for this next topic, this next segment of the show, which is that that particular video from CCP, the EVE Industry video.
Yeah, and why this? I think this is relevant and important enough to actually make a topic is because it just is one of those great examples of when CCP does videos, promo-wise or adverts or any type of production from the video crew. Really, they really just kick it out the ballpark. It's like this is just maybe one of the best videos that CCP has ever produced, quality-wise, both because of all the things that it's doing. But also just because of the actual planning and storyboarding of this video. It is fun to see because CCP has always been good at videos, but recently, or a few years ago, I think around 16 or something like that, one of the players actually started doing these small animation-like things which had a very specific feel to it. I don't know how many of our viewers actually know about Corin Moore and his video production, but it was these very graphically interesting types of animations with things that are like exploding and splitting and things like that. It was not really your clip-based video. It was more like actual animational stuff, right? And he's done many different things. But recently, he started collaborating with CCP a lot and actually has been working freelance on projects for CCP. And you can see some of the qualities of his work actually creeping into all the video productions of CCP. We saw it in the racing one.
I mean, he'd been working with with CCP for quite some time, actually. Like, he helped CCP at Vegas in 2018. And it's funny because we were having this conversation like a little earlier in the Discord about CCP Guard and Corin War kind of having not their first chance encounter initially, when they were talking about like when Guard was kind of getting in touch with him to do some work for CCP, because in actual fact that it is CCP Guard and Corin War's first encounter, which I thought was funny.
It's a cute story that
it is real cute.
Corin's mother and Guard's mother were actually real life best friends, and it's one of those small weird what is it, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon thingy.
Yeah,
it's just it's a funny and cute little story. But the point is that Corin Moore started collaborating with CCP a lot, and you can now see a lot of his creative DNA in the way that CCP produces their videos. And it's something that I have especially noticed with things like the racing video, the thing that they did when they introduced formation flying. You can really see these things, and it's very inspired. And this thing that Mac is showing with the exploding production setting is really a great example of something that just screams Corin Moore. Funny fact, though, as far as I know, and I've been informed, he was actually not a direct participant in this video. But you can just see his fingerprints is all over this way of thinking. And then they do this amazing transition. I don't know how many of you guys noticed it, but the way that they use this thing with the exploding industry thing, and then later in the video, the same ship comes back when it's actually being put into the production slots in the station, and you see all the things that are being required to build it, and then it just shows the ship, and then it zooms out, and then it's the actual blueprint. It's so beautifully made. It's a really, really nice transition.
I'm seeing if I can find it right now. I think it's this one, right? This little bit where like it zooms out and it's now the eagle icon.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. It's when I saw that, it's just like, oh my god, this is just so cool. I'm a little bit of a connoisseur when it comes to this type of graphically and animation based things. Basically, it's all the inspiration back to old Bond movies with the vignettes that you get in the beginning of the movie, and you see a lot of this in modern series, especially in things from the MCU. In the Netflix series, things like Daredevil and Luke Cage, and it's just, I love that stuff. You also have it in series like House of Cards and in Sherlock. It's like so much quality work in like so few seconds. It's just amazing. I really love it. And the really cool thing about this video, because all of that aside, there's actually more, because this thing comes out when it's supposed to introduce this big patch that's coming out where industry in EVE is changing a lot. And the whole topic and content of this video is so spot on in showing and explaining what the idea is about all these industry changes. Of course, anyone that's actually been following GIS will already know the discussion. So I hope they can see why I think this is actually a little bit of perfection from CCP, because all the things about complexity and added vertical strain and adding value to new players or smaller operatives, all of that is just in this video. I don't know who scripted this and who planned it, but I'm just going to tip my hat, because it's a little piece of perfection, because it introduces these 5 dudes, right? That are 5 real life dudes. I don't know how many alts they juggle, but the fact that they have this industrial thing running and explain how they feel about it and how they work, it's just brilliant. And as far as I know, it's an actual real group. The reason that it's not named is most likely because CCP don't want to be blamed for favoritism and actually creating a free advert for actual players and player corporations. Because
Or the most likely result of EVE players being EVE players, finding those people and kicking their heads in.
either of the two, right? So it's actually a good idea that they didn't name them. But I'm very curious, and I would actually have liked to know. But I just think it's a little bit of perfection. And then, of course, added to that, I think it also shows how CCP successfully puts their player base front and center when it comes to their marketing. And they've been doing that since, I'm inclined to say since Torfi France had the epiphany back with the first Groen book, that the players are actually what matters in this game, not so much what CCP makes. And since then, they've just been doing this with integrating the player base in all of their marketing stuff. I mentioned the cool and cute thing where they got all the players singing in this big chorus, which I think was amazing.
Yeah, I remember that one. I kind of thought it was a little bit cringy, but like, you know, to each their own, you know. I think probably the thing that the one trailer, the one sort of like video that a lot of people really remembers or was really seen sort of to basically distill the essence of playing EVE was the This Is EVE trailer. And that's really kind of the one that I think a lot of people realize is that there's, you know, instead of CCP taking a narrative and then fashioning it to whatever they feel like, and then taking and like hiring voice actors to voice the parts and stuff like that, they literally got voice comms and stuff from, you know, a whole bunch of respective player groups instead of, you know, just voice acting it. You know, if you guys haven't seen it, you really should. But at this point, I think everybody probably has seen it by now.
I still think that even though that thing was amazing and it was so well made, I loved the reaction from the player base. It was literally the player base doing "Hold my beer," and then they went and made an actual "No, this is really EVE," where it was not parental guidance thing. It was filled with all the bad stuff as well. It was the most fun thing ever, and I know for a fact that pretty much everyone at CCP almost loves that one more than their own.
Yeah. The thing that I like about about this particular trailer is, even though you can kind of say if this isn't actually how EVE is, like how you play EVE, like, you know, the vistas, the panning and sort of the panning sort of vistas and visual sort of things, apart from obviously, you know, this particular bit where you're talking about like creating, you know, manufacturing stuff, like, yeah, this is kind of like the gameplay, but like the other stuff which seems a lot more cinematic. Yeah, it's not how you play EVE, but like it still has that essence of playing EVE. You still get that essence of playing EVE.
And even though let's leave the visuals aside, because in this day and age, gamers are really more and more realizing a game is not so much about the visuals. Of course, visuals are nice, but if you see the success rate of games that are fundamentally ugly bugly or look like something that came out of the 90s, because the game itself is the important thing. And when you listen to the comms, even if these guys are playing on complete potato mode with brackets and shit just turned off, doesn't matter. It's the experience, and you can tell that these guys are excited, right? And that means that the game is delivering on the experience, and even more so when you listen to This Is Really EVE.
Oh, very much so. But yeah, we kind of like this stuff because this is very much how you know, sort of a showcase as to how CCP and how a developer can really, you know, inspire but also you know, enrich their sort of community by like.
Yeah, and it's two-way, right? Because if they enrich us, the payback in us enriching them is going to be even bigger, right? Because this is how you create the cult-like fan base, right? The fan base that is basically running around selling your game every single day. Funny enough, Ashtaroth called this the over-the-shoulder selling, where when someone starts asking you about what are you playing, or what's that weird game, or why do you have those strange pins on your jacket, it's like that's when you actually get an EVE player to sell your game for you.
Yeah,
that was what was really impressive, because while that commercial was a huge nod to the actual existing player base, it was also insanely successful as marketing. I remember when that came out, and the wave of new players was huge. Like you can even still see on the EVE Online player count charts, like it had a massive impact. It's probably the most successful in terms of like actual results that were measurable by far.
And I think that's also why they want to do more in that frame of mind, right? Because I think it had like 24 million views or something completely bonkers like that.
Strangely enough, it's not the highest view count video that CCP has had, not by a long shot in actual fact, but it is still, pretty heavily. Yeah. Like, I mean,
which one is then?
I can quickly go and check, but I was staggered at the actual the one that has the high top spot and how much. It's actually a 2 years ago official gameplay trailer from EVE Online. Strangely, it's just like, hang on, I'll show you guys. Where is it? Here we go.
I'm going to guess that one had a lot of paid advertisement.
I think it may have, because it has 67 million views.
Holy moly, that's a lot.
And I have that strange feeling that was also counting, say, for example, Facebook views, which I don't know if you've ever experienced Facebook, but if you're scrolling on Facebook and like it auto plays, even if auto plays for like 1 second and you just scroll straight past it, that counts as a view. So like, I don't know.
I think that's also embedded in the EVE website, so maybe a lot of the views come from there.
Yeah, it could potentially. Anyway, we shall take a quick break and then come into the next segment with the last of our topics. See you in a moment. And we're back. Hey guys, we are going to talk about an article that apparently CCP tweeted out like 2 days ago, but actually happened somewhere around about 2 to 3 weeks ago. So I kind of feel like it didn't quite get the attention that it probably deserved, and so CCP was like, "Yeah, let's redress that," and send out a tweet about it. But the article in mind is this one, and it is from MMORPG, a year in, how MMO developers maintained their game worlds during the global pandemic. And obviously,
isn't this where we say, well, did they really? Because I seem to remember that we've covered a lot of cancellations and read about even more.
I mean, maybe with like other games, but MMOs as a live service, like they have to carry on, otherwise, like Otherwise, things fail, and it's one of those things where you have to keep the engine rolling. Otherwise, if it stops, then it's way harder to get it back, started back up again, right?
Yeah, but I just remember that I think was it 6 or 8 actual MMOs that actually closed down and stopped their services during all this, and we also saw all the projects that was supposed to become actual new games getting cancelled, and 2 out of 3 of the Amazon projects have been suffering, right? So I'm just saying that a lot of game developers have not been able to adapt to the COVID stuff.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, like if you read through the article, you get this kind of sense that in actual fact, even though CCP and various other kind of live service game providers and developers, have had to adjust very, very quickly, to the new set of circumstances to keep their games up and also to keep developing and keep the content kind of coming in to their games. It's actually been for the betterment of a lot of them, because a lot of them have embraced different styles of working. They've embraced different. They've realized that embracing that different style of working also opens them up to being able to accept and work with a much more diverse kind of group, and I mean diverse in not just sort of in sort of not in the traditional diverse hirings kind of thing, but also from a geographical standpoint.
Well, just the fact that they can hire without being requiring location-based things is just opening up a company to so much more opportunity when it comes to attracting brain power, right?
Yeah.
I think Spot has talked a bit about this, at least in private, about how game development and any software development really should have done this long ago, because it's just the obvious thing to do, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of... Sorry, go for it, Spot.
I was just to say, in software development, and game development by extension, I suppose, the only time you actually get any real resistance to the sort of whole remote working thing is it's sort of traditionalist managers. And while it is genuinely true that some people, employees, just they personally don't like it, whether that's because their home circumstances aren't ideal for it, or whether that's just because some people really, really need that demarcation between this is my house, this is where I do my home things, this is the office, this is where I do office things, and some people struggle with that. But software, and especially gaming in this last couple of years, has been so ripe for it, because not only have they now got the huge advantage of they can hire whoever the hell they want from any kind of wet part of the planet, they've also skipped the problem that a lot of other industries have had, where during the pandemic, more people have to work remotely, and when you work remotely, there's initial setup costs, at least for the business. The business now has to invest in, VPNs, new servers, new software, new staff to actually set that up. But gaming's got away with that because that's all been offset by the fact that game sales have gone to the moon. So they're making more money than ever, and now hopefully they're going to be able to be more innovative and faster moving than ever.
And there's an irony there too that actually ties into what I want to segue to next, is when it comes to hiring these people, if you're hiring this particular kind of software nerd, or especially game developer nerds, their setup is already there, right? They already have all the things you just mentioned. So sure, the company can pay for a home office setup, but the guys you're hiring already have it, right? They already have it and exceeds the needs that you're talking about. This is one of the funny things that CCP mentioned, and I think other game developers might have mentioned it as well, that CCP said that a lot of the procedures of how to do this transition they actually took inspiration from the players, right? Because the player organizations in EVE Online are actually bigger than CCP and actually have way better tools and management procedures than most of the things that CCP already had in-house. So Hilmer was actually tipping his hat and saying, well, we basically took a page from the EVE Online players and actually almost copied the way that they do things. And that also ties into the transition and usage of tools like Slack and Discord and all of that stuff, right? Because we use it every day as EVE players, because that's the only way we can communicate with our EVE player friends, right?
I think.
Yeah, I know for a fact the company I've just left has, my alliance has much better like communications infrastructure than the company I've just left, which is kind of hilarious when they're a multi-million-pound company. It's
a bit crazy, right? Like, so, and you kind of touched on a few things there, Caleb, as well as you that Spod, that I was kind of going to bring up, because a lot of the communication stuff like that you tend to have in EVE with your respective either sort of corporations or alliances or even coalitions are very much they're battened down in terms of security, right? They are secure related communication forms in order to make sure that you are who you say you are, when you jump on. Because a lot of the gameplay inside of EVE Online is about spying, about sort of breaking, getting the intel, because intel, having the supremacy of intel is a game changer. And so, interestingly enough, gaming companies learning this from gamers, sometimes it doesn't work out, right. And it didn't really work out for CD Projekt Red, because unfortunately, CD Projekt Red kind of got hacked.
Yeah, and this ties into one of the real ironies, I think, about EVE Online, because both Spot and yourself, Mac, have actually just mentioned that the whole things that the players do is kind of superior to what many companies do in real life. And really funny is the fact that the services in the game, right? So the tools that CCP has given us that we have then used to create all these tools. So whether you're talking about ESI stuff and single sign-on and all of these things, right? Mm-hmm. We require a certain level of security, right? We could go into a long thing about the whole joke with the e-vetting when we check new applications and all that stuff, or whether we're talking about server access and Mumble things and Slack access and all of that. And it's just really funny to me that CCP has given us tools that when EVE nerds then integrate them into their third-party stuff and procedures, they are better than many professional things, right?
Well, I would
that's
say
like mind-blowing.
I would say that our stuff probably doesn't come under the level of scrutiny that sort of some companies do. Like, I mean, I'm picking on CD Projekt Red with the Cyberpunk hack, but like, to be completely honest, Cyberpunk was like the talk about thing for such a long period of time that you're gonna basically CD Projekt Red had all eyes on them, especially from sort of what would be, was it black hat hackers, not white hat, but black hat ones.
Black hat is bad guys,
yeah. So the guys that want to see, realize that there is a significant amount of potential revenue that they can make out of it. But I specifically wanted to point that out, point out the Cyberpunk one, because it was, I believe it was a vulnerability that they had, regarding working from home and essentially sort of remote work kind of functionality that they were pushing out to their, to their staff because of COVID.
Yeah, I haven't read into what the actual exact issue was, but it's from the vague outside view that I've had, it seems like it was just a human cock up at the end of the day. Which unfortunately doesn't matter how good your software is. If there's somebody doing a big oof at some point, good luck.
Yeah. So, but going back to the original MMO RPG sort of article, it's actually a really interesting article to check out, because there's I highlighted a few different interesting things. Let's see if I can. Like there are some interesting sort of stuff from Pearl Abyss as well. Which was interesting. Like this kind of bit where it says, thanks to how effective and efficient the Korean government handled the pandemic, Pearl Abyss's employees were actually able to keep working from the office, even just with new procedures in place to ensure the safety of their employees. And some of those procedures were kind of interesting. Hang on, where is it? Our employees still came into the office, so we had to put safeguards in place. For example, we put a guard in the cafeteria and a whole body sanitizer and thermal sensor camera in the lobby.
I want to know more about this whole body sanitizing thing. Because being Eastern, I'm wondering if this is similar to some sort of alcohol rub neuro massage thing.
I have no idea, dude. Like, one can only guess. I'm thinking it probably didn't require you to unrobe yourself in the lobby.
I hope and assume that I would.
But I imagined it's just sort of like a whole bunch of like mist sprays that just basically coat yourself in sanitizer, and then you basically walk out and go. But even so,
just hold your breath, I imagine.
Yeah, just hold your breath and walk through it. There were some cool things in it. Like there were some cool insights into the processes that now go on inside of, say, for example, CCP.
Well, I can just comment that you guys went straight to 12 Monkeys scene with the cleaning thing. My brain just automatically went to all the original Star Trek scene with the weird clean room in what's it in Star Trek Enterprise, right? Which is with the blue lights and
sonic showers and stuff,
and the rubby creams and stuff. So much difference in what type of fantasies we have.
Well, I wouldn't consider them fantasies, but you know.
Don't you remember? It's the one with the sexy Vulcan.
Okay, I'll take your word for that. But
wow, you're not a proper Trekkie, Max.
No, I'm not a proper Trekkie, to be completely honest. But just getting back to this article, there was kind of I'm going to see if I can find the specific aspects of that CCP were talking about. Yeah, so essentially there was this kind of this aspect of developing developing in the same location, kind of where you have this like water cooler talk, and a lot of developers found that this water cooler talk was missing when you have everybody working remotely. Interestingly enough, they've all developed variants or various different ways of kind of promoting a water cooler periods of time in their workday, where people can just socialize without actually being very specifically about, like, without it being goal orientated, let's put it that way.
Well, and again, it's funny because comparing with player base, this is what at least TIS and 9N and most other organizations in EVE have been doing for years and years, having this casual room where you hang out and chill out. But admittedly, we've introduced a little bit of this, at least on 9N, with the Friday cocktail parties. But again, this is inspired by the fact that if you want to drink with your friends, you have to do it online as well. Of course, Open Comms was way ahead of their time. So
that's a good point.
it's just funny because this is just so normal to us in EVE Online. This is why I think the joke was, at least in the early months of quarantine, was that almost all of the EVE players were saying, "What are you talking about? I can't tell I can't feel any difference." It's like this is like normal procedure for me. It's like I'm in my house with my battle station doing exactly what I usually do.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of crazy when you read through this and you kind of like think to what we do as like, you know, the sort of like the EVE player base, and what we can tend to sort of how we tend to socialize. It's literally this, like literally what they do, and it's kind of interesting how they've come into the fray, you know, come to realize the significance, or at least the power that what we do or what we've been doing, you know, gives them.
Yeah, it took a world pandemic to actually get the normies to catch up to us. This is funny. I did have a horrible experience in real life because I was trying to teach my local university how to adapt to these things and how to transition. And the red tape in there was just bonkers. And I could tell that they didn't understand half of the terminologies I tried to use. That was really, really bad. But on the flip side, someone I know in a top 10 world business player actually transitioned as well, and that person actually helped them implement all the new tools inspired by EVE players in this big corporation, and has been really successful in introducing it. So there's good stories and bad stories, I think, from most EVE players. I think many EVE players have actually been taking on that role in their real life life and business.
Yeah.
An interesting anecdote quickly on the water cooler kind of side of things. Because the company I worked for also recently obviously had to transfer to full-time working from home. And I've got two main colleagues I interact with, and one I press ganged into my EVE Alliance at some point, and the other one don't really share that level of what's the word? Just shared interest. And the difference in like how productive we can be between each other is quite interesting. So, for example, the one that was in my EVE Alliance, we're always on comms all day, even though I'm at work, but I don't need my mouth to program, so that's fine. So we can chat, and we might be talking about, oh, what's this fit? Do you like this fit? Is this interesting? Where are we going to try and invade next? Also, did you see the ticket that I raised for so and so bug? And it's I think that's what they mean by the water cooler, because it's. In normal reality, it's oh, did you see the Arsenal game last night? Oh, by the way, I emailed you so and so. It's the same thing essentially.
It is, yeah.
And so that was massively helpful. But then the colleague that was not involved with me in that sense, where my interaction with them was through a text-based chat application and a daily 15-minute meeting, which in reality was everybody takes a turn to say, yes, today I did this, and today I will do this, and everyone else goes to sleep during your little speech. Meant that the communication with us absolutely broke down. Like, I was punching myself in the head every time I had to talk to him, because we just were not understanding each other and not communicating in any real valuable way.
Sort of a genuine way, right?
To learn from gaming. Yeah, because when I would communicate with my EVE/work colleague, it was far friendlier. Whereas the colleague that I don't talk to very often, whereas I would in a physical office, it becomes very official and formal, and that makes things very awkward, and it makes it far more of a pain in the ass to often get your point across or get things done. It was just an interesting anecdote from my personal life, if you enjoy that kind of thing. It was a dog.
Well, in an effort to tie this off a little bit, there was a sort of a few little bits at the end of the particular article that I thought was quite interesting, and we'll give people an idea as to why this show is named in the way that it is. So basically, CCP's creative director also talked about the sort of advantages and flexibility of like, you know, having a remote a way of their colleagues to be able to remote work, right? And basically, CCP now actually has an internal talk show where they talk about EVE Online, like just sort of casually.
Now that would be spicy to leak.
That would be kind of spicy to leak, but I imagine it's pretty watertight. You know, because, you know, if it's not watertight, then the water cooler leaks, right?
I remember an internal magazine once that was supposed to be very not leaky. So who knows?
And so just to come back to this specifically, and while CCP can at this particular moment in time, because of their situation and because, you know, Iceland's a fairly small country and they've got their sort of their COVID kind of issues, like, you know, in hand at the moment, whilst they can almost have every developer back in the office physically, like Berger says that CCP has a hybrid, now has kind of almost cultivated as hybrid culture, with many of their developers actually choosing to work from home versus full-time at the office itself.
Yeah, and again, if you take something like what Discord offers you when it comes to virtual office experience, I think this is back to the first thing we covered. This is the perfect tool for that experience. I have not. Of course, you can say, well, there's things like Teams and there's things like Slack. Yeah, but it's not that casual thing where it feels like an actual room. Like when we manage channels in TIS, we kind of name these things very similar to what you would do when you did office space department locals and all that. And when we jump into hang out in rooms, we do it almost as if you go into an office and sit down and people can see you. You might not actually be fully active and ready to have a talk, but you're visible enough so someone can actually poke you and initiate a conversation. You just get this asynchronous office experience, which is, in my opinion, where everything is going to go in the next 10 years.
Oh yeah, well, I don't think it's going to be in the next 10 years. I think it's going to be a little shorter than that. Like, we're already kind of halfway there. Like, I mean, 10, 20 years, yeah, if we didn't have this pandemic to sort of like kick everybody into gear with it, well, like, I think it's like progressed pretty quickly. Like, I mean, even the entertainment industry and events kind of you know, people putting together events, like, they're now going on with a more hybrid mindset when it comes to making events. You know, they're not looking at it as just being, you know, an event just for the people who sort of you know, actually go to those particular events, you know, physically in that particular location, but they're also, you know, looking at creating a sort of a hybrid event that everybody can, you know, regardless of where they are in the world, can actually experience themselves.
And can I just say on that note, because I think that's a really important one, when it comes to things like movies, I just noticed, and I can't remember which movie it is, where they specifically said that it's only going to be added to actual live theaters, which is completely walking backwards, in my opinion. We've just had the COVID thing. We've just experienced how things like the Zack Snyder thing became a reality, and it was amazing. We had the premiere of Wonder Woman and all these things all launch on these platforms at a huge level of success, as far as I know. And I personally think that this is the best thing that's actually happened, is the fact that I no longer have to go into a cinema with, back to what Spot was mentioning earlier, with the people with the BO. That doesn't really suit me. I prefer this experience at home, and especially because then I can push the pause button. I can go and make myself coffee. I can sit and I can actually smoke, which is my personal thing. All of these things, I don't have to consider anyone else, right? And I don't need the inconvenience of going into town and stuff like that. And the experience to me is not that much superior in a cinema. I know that some people are really huge with the whole sound systems and feeling the shaking in their tummy and all that stuff, but that's not what is important to me. If I have my 42 plus inch screen, I'm getting more than enough of the experience from watching a movie. So I think this is a huge step forward, and the fact that one of these movie makers have actually decided to go back to the original old model is just stupid, in my opinion. It's just wrong.
It is a bit kind of crazy. I'm with you on that one. Like the whole at cinemas only kind of thing is just like it's a mistake. Like I get sort of trying to push sort of people to sort of go to cinemas rather than just like relax at home kind of thing. But like, you know, I think the cinema needs to, you know, to showcase that themselves in some way, shape, or form. Like, you know, there's various different ways of them doing that. Like it's such a connected world these days that, like, you know, anybody can make an advert and push it to go viral to some degree.
Well, I think my stance is that, to me, I think that cinema should go and die in a fire. But I'm willing to do a compromise and say at least movie makers should offer both, and at the same time. I don't understand why they would not use this new model, because it's just so superior and it's so convenient to the consumers. And sure, an industry dies, but well, so did the horse breeding when we got motorized vehicles. So I don't see why anyone would go backwards. It's just bad.
I'm gonna this last little thing I'm just gonna say before we end the show, but you know, not everybody has an absolutely awesome pimped out, like, you know, cinema experience at home. So, you know, when you watch a film that's like kind of new, and they kind of say, you know, please enjoy it in a cinema for the best experience. And if you watch it on a crappy, like, you know, phone that can barely that can barely play, you know, that particular kind of thing, and it sounds like shit because it's coming through like speakers that cost literally nothing. True. You know, and you think, oh, that's a terrible film, like that was a terrible experience. Yeah, it was a terrible experience because you tried to enjoy it on a terrible, in a terrible medium. You know, you may want to actually go to a cinema to actually experience it, because, you know, surprise, surprise, cinemas actually have gone out their way to, you know, to get the best systems, the best the best equipment in order for you to actually experience this. So, you know,
they do also have the huge nostalgia factor. Like, I unironically do enjoy going to the cinema, buying the crappy nachos with the weird greasy jalapenos and the like plastic tub of cheese that they give you with them, and having a watered down cup of Coke, and then going and watching the film while somebody coughs behind me. I actually there's a nostalgia and an enjoyment to it. Especially when it creates a whole event, because you don't just do that. You go out afterwards because you go out for dinner or something like that, and you might go to a bar afterwards or for coffee. But if you consider the fact that now it's not that you're going to stop going out. It's just that now you might be more inclined to go to the theater or go watch a stand-up show or go watch the opera or anything like that. It's not, and this is actually, I think, better product and more worth my money when cinemas already started charging way above and beyond what I really feel like it's worth, right? I'd rather triple that amount and go see a play or go see a ballet or something like that. Well, that's why I say I think the value it has and will have for now is going to be the nostalgia, because eventually you will realize that those nachos were like wood and the cheese sauce was horrible, and that kid probably does have corona and he's spitting it in your ear. That like objectively actually is a terrible experience, but because you remember doing that your entire life, you do get that nice feeling about it. And really, even things like the having a cinema experience in the home is becoming so accessible. Like, I purchased not long ago a 55-inch 4K HDR TV, and it was £200 brand new. It's getting ridiculously cheap to get. What 10 years ago would have been insanely high end. So it's going to die out one way or another. Yeah.
I thought for a minute what you were going to say was like, it depends entirely on how close to your face you put your phone, right?
But the screens now are almost getting too big. I don't know where to put them. I can afford them, but I have no place to put them.
Okay, good.
Anyway, with that, we should probably end the show.
Indeed.
Yeah. If you guys want to chat, chat to us after the show, we generally tend to hang out on the Discord. Actual fact, we're recording this from the Discord, and we'll probably be in the public chat afterwards. So if you want to pop in, say hi, etc., that's fair enough. Definitely make sure that you are a follower on the stream channel on Twitch. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely let us know in some way, shape, or form. And with that, other than that, definitely go check out Maderal's show later on today in sort of US Prime.
Get ready for the entire weekend of good content.
Oh yes. With that,
talkinginstations.com/Discord.
Right, okay, we've got that. Cool, nice. Anyway, with that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next Friday.